I hope that Javier Assad, or as Cody Delmendo calls him, the ass man, I hope he gets chosen as kind of that fifth starter spot.
1-2. Swinging a drive toward right center. Back goes Robert. Back near the stands. That ball is gone. A game-winning home run for Chris Morel. Can you believe it? Listen to this crowd.
Welcome back to the Brotherly Cubs podcast. I'm Zach, and this is my brother John. We are your brothers who love everything Cubs baseball. If you enjoy talking about the Cubs, then hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and join us every week as we dive into the power, the speed, and the best team in the National League. We like to start off each pod with a playful question for all 55 of our subscribers. Feel free to put your answer in the comments. Today, John, I ask you, who is the goofiest Cub of all time?
Of all time is kind of a tricky question. I mean, immediately I went back to 2016, 2017 type of era, and I was thinking of Anthony Rizzo when he was running on the base paths and he was just kind of messing around with Freddie Freeman. And he was calling him Frederick, come here, Frederick.
I forgot
So
about all that. Yeah, he is
no, I think
goofy.
he was chasing. No, he was chasing Freddie. I was gonna say chasing Frederick down. He kind of comes into mind, and then I was also thinking about Seiya Suzuki. He's getting up there for me because he's always doing something really silly and just goofy and making like just funny faces and playing around with people a lot. So
Yeah,
he's a real goofball. What about you? What do you think?
I have a couple players that come to mind. When I know El Soriano, when he came to the Cubs, he had to transition from infield to outfield,
Mhm.
or maybe he did that with the Nats. I can't remember, but he did transition. He eventually had to play left field, and he did a little jump every time he caught the ball. So I thought that was a
Yeah, I
funny
thought about that.
little.
Yeah, I thought about that too. I was like, well, Soriano's kind of
He's goofy. The biggest. This is going to be a surprising one, but to me, the biggest like just almost like weirdest Cubs player to me comes to mind is Sammy Sosa. I don't know if you've seen his Michael Jackson-esque pigment transformation, but he is like white as a ghost.
yeah,
So it's just surprising for a Dominican to have such light skin. I don't know what he did, chemical procedures he did to his skin, but he
yeah,
looks like scary pale. So, and
yeah,
he's not sick. I think he just did that to himself.
yeah. He went full Britney. You know, to a 2008 Britney. Just he pulled a fast one on us, and
He's Britney Spears and Michael Jackson in one.
yeah, it's a weird personality. I thought when you said Michael Jackson, like I was thinking he did like a Michael Jackson impersonation or something. You know, being goofy,
Well,
something like that. So
I mean, just the whole changing your skin color type deal. I mean, he's about the closest celebrity I can think of come to mind that dramatically altered their skin color like that.
yeah,
Uh, there's some
uh,
goofy Cubs. Sammy also does like a hop. He did a hop too when he hit home run. So I think of Soriano and Sosa the same way, both really into hopping.
yeah.
So, so
But
let's
that
move on to the latest news. Uh, this just broke the other day. So Dylan Cease has been traded to the Padres from the White Sox for a handful of the Padres' top prospects. It sounds like there's a few in the top 10 and then of their system and a couple top 100 overall. And then as well, I think there's probably 4 or 5 players that went in that deal. I know Thorpe was a name that I guess a pitcher that was included. It was a top 100 prospect. And there's several others where I don't know I don't know the Padres system that well. I
yeah,
know there was names tossed around for when they acquired Juan Soto, and then they subsequently gave up Juan Soto again to the Yankees. So weird that in the same offseason, the Padres would trade a superstar like Juan Soto and acquire a star pitcher like Dylan Cease. But this sort of happened around the time where the Yankees got news about Garrett Cole. He has a setback. There's lots of pitching injuries right now. And the Yankees were in rumors to try and acquire Cease. He goes to the Padres. So Dylan Cease, or I should say, with the White Sox, he was in Arizona, right? Their spring complex is in Arizona. They've played the Cubs a couple times already in Mesa. I think it's close by to that area. So, he went from staying in Arizona, that's where he's playing to be, to literally next week on the 20th, or potentially the day before, Dylan Cease is going to travel with the Padres to Seoul, South Korea to face the Dodgers in this Seoul series. So I thought that was kind of an interesting thing. I just thought of that today. Like, wow, he's gonna have to travel to South Korea. Can you imagine telling your wife that? Like, you're in Arizona hanging out, you think you're gonna be there for a couple more weeks. Hey, I'm going to South Korea next week, right? What a bombshell to drop.
Yeah.
Um,
He
so
won't be able to help out around the house anymore.
oh man. Yeah, so that's gonna affect the Cubs. They won't have to play they won't have to face off against Dylan Cease when they face the White Sox. Of course, they'll end up facing Dylan Cease on the Padres anyway, so it doesn't really save the Cubs too much. Uh, the Cubs have played well this week. Their record is now 12-7. Last time they were 6-6. So when I updated this, I was pretty excited to be like, "Hey, we were like 6-1 this last week. That's really good."
Yeah.
Um, so I'm excited about that. I know it's spring training, but it's fun to see some wins on the board. And then as we just keep rattling off news, there just keeps to be more and more news as we get closer to opening day here. So the Cubs obviously made some roster cuts. There's too many to just sit here and list, but PCA is one of the notable ones, along with obviously Matt Shaw and Owen Caissie. PCA will start Iowa this year. Um, at the time of recording, we're the day before the spring breakout game. Very excited about that. Cubs will play the Sox. They're both going to play a major league spring training game as well as a minor league backfields type game that'll be televised called the spring breakout game. The rosters were released not long ago. PCA, Cade Horton, Owen Caissie, Matt Shaw, Kevin Alcantara, James Triantos, Moises Ballesteros, and Jefferson Rojas. I listed 8 of the top 10 Cubs that are in the spring breakout game. 2 others that are missing would be Wicks and Busch, Jordan Wicks and Michael Busch, since they are going to break camp on the Cubs 26-man roster. And as we just keep going here, Wisdom is back in games. Happ is close to playing spring training games as well as Madrigal. I think Happ's a little closer. Jameson Taillon, we were hoping to do. I remember last time we are like, hey, he's close to getting to a game. He had a setback, lower back injury. Sounds like it's tight. He's gonna, I think he stopped throwing. He's gonna start throwing again, get on a throwing program. They will likely place him on the 15-day injury list, which in this case, you can always backdate your injury list to 3 days. So if he starts the opening day on the injured list, he'll be able to come back 12 days into the season, meaning he's eligible to turn, I believe, April 9th. So as we kind of go through those, any thoughts on that laundry list of stuff I just rattled off there?
Yeah, I mean, just obviously starting with the most recent thing there with Jameson Taillon. I mean, that's really discouraging as far as his injury. We've known about that obviously for a little while now, but you don't want to rush him back. We have, I think, the pitching depth to kind of make up for his couple starts that he'll miss. Hopefully not more than that, but I'd rather them get it right, and I'd rather them really tend to his back and rehab the way that they need to, the way that he needs to. So like we said, we have plenty of pitching depth that we can pull from. Obviously, Javier Assad can slot in real nicely to back him up. So like you had said, Wisdom made a return, Patrick Wisdom. So he's really tearing the cover off the ball. I really kind of tore him to shreds. I think last time I was talking about the least liked Cubs player, or the most hated or whatever Cubs player. So for me, I haven't had amazing memories of Patrick Wisdom, but he's starting to replace those bad ones with good ones lately. So I think he has
Yeah,
2 home so far. He's only been playing for what, 6 or 8 games, something like that.
he did homers in back-to-back games, and one of them was a walk-off homer.
Right, yeah.
So that's pretty sweet, right? Walk-off bomb and hits a homer the next day. So yeah, I'm glad he's back healthy and looking good, obviously.
Hmm.
Every time I look at this roster and look at the camp battles, I don't think Wisdom is necessarily battling for a camp spot as long as he's healthy. I guess I feel like Garrett Cooper is the one who's battling it for a spot, and he looks good too.
Yeah, he
He,
does.
um,
I was gonna
yeah,
say, that obviously wasn't mentioned earlier, but Garrett Cooper has really been hitting the ball really well, and he definitely is starting to make a name for himself on this team. So it'll be really interesting the decision that Craig Counsell makes as far as like the final 26-man roster. So
yeah. Interesting note here for the 26-man roster that will start opening day. If the Cubs go with, uh, let me backtrack. If Morel starts season at third base, then you obviously need bench players, a guy who can play third, such as Wisdom or Mastrobuoni. Madrigal figures in to be that spot if he's healthy. And then that does leave an everyday position for DH until Pete Crow Armstrong, aka PCA, as we will call him on here. So before PCA comes up, you have Bellinger every day in center, and you have Busch almost every day at first. Now, I should also backtrack again. It sounds like the Cubs do want a right-handed bat at first. So that could be Wisdom, right? You could go Busch and Wisdom. Now, or it could be Garrett Cooper, right? So Garrett Cooper also looks good. He has a lower career strikeout rate than Patrick Wisdom. He doesn't have as much power at this point, but he's shown power in previous years. He had 17 bombs last year with the Marlins. So there's a little bit of give and take there. I mean, Matt Mervis could be your everyday DH, another left-handed hitter. We know they like to have left-handed hitters break the lineup up to right-handed. And, you have to have an everyday DH. Okay, maybe it's Smith and Mervis competing for that left-handed bat. Again, Smith would have to be added to the 40-man roster, so these are considerations. Wisdom does not need to be added to the 40-man, but Garrett Cooper does, right? So Wisdom could be your right-handed platoon, and Garrett Cooper could be your everyday DH, sure. Now, yeah, Cooper has to be added. And then if the Cubs want to have any other bullpen options make the team, they need to also free up a spot on the 40-man roster if it's a non-roster invitee, such as CJ Edwards, or if it's any of the other arms that would be I'm only really thinking of Edwin Escobar at this point, but I feel like there's a few other arms. I know they brought in a lot of guys and they've already cut some of them, right? So Ethan Roberts didn't even really pitch. We talked about him a couple weeks ago. I talked to Rich Beasterfield about Ethan Roberts and I was excited to see him, but he didn't really show up into any games. We saw Escobar, Lovelady, Pannoni, CJ, obviously. So the only guy that I feel like has an outside chance to make it is CJ that's on the 40 man. But other than that, if they don't have an opt-out clause with CJ Edwards and he can stay in Iowa for a month or so, I would actually prefer they just do that and not waste a roster spot. I think the Cubs will give a 40-man roster spot to Garrett Cooper, and they won't have to sacrifice anyone because Caleb Killian will be put on the 60-day injured list, as we talked about. If the Cubs want to make any other moves, though, they'd have to DFA or trade someone. So that's always a difficult thing around this time of year is how do you make spots for guys that made the team? Last year, they made a shocking move, and I don't know why they did this, but Luis Torrens made the roster. Terrible move, honestly. They didn't need three catcher. It'd be like if they gave a 40-man roster spot to Jorge Alfaro, right? It's like, okay, he has a 400 OPS. I mean, all these are small samples, but Alfaro has not looked good so far. We haven't even really mentioned him on the camp battles because it's looked like just like Gomes and Amaya. And then there's other catchers that could figure in to be that third catcher. Um, Alfaro down the road, but of course Pablo Aliendo, Joe Hudson was a non-roster invitee. He looks pretty good. So it seems like there's a lot of pretty stagnant, I shouldn't say stagnant battles, but it seems like there's a lot that's locked in place. There's not too many moving parts, but this Taillon thing we mentioned is going to create a, as we sort of segue here, actually, I guess we'll do hitting first and then we'll go into pitching. But I was just going to say that when we do discuss pitching later, we could definitely talk about how there's two spots for opening day instead of just one. But
Yeah.
so any thoughts about hitting? Do you want to give us, I guess, the top three hitters so far in Cactus League for the Cubs?
Yeah, we have three of our best hitters right here. So Owen Caissie, obviously, we've been talking about him. He's hitting 379 and 29 at bats. He's batting a little over 1,000 on for OPS, and he has one home run and seven RBIs. So he's still doing really well. David Bote is tied with O'Neal Cruz for 5 home runs this spring.
Love it.
Yeah, I love spring hero, right? Spring training hero. He has 9 RBIs. So again, he also has an OPS over 1,000, 1.091 to be exact, and 32 at bats. Seiya Suzuki is hitting 364 and 22 at bats, and again hitting over 1,000 on his OPS, 1.053, and then he has a home run and 3 RBIs. Today he did really well. He went 2 for 3. He doubled in Nico Horner, and so I believe, yeah, he had 2 hits, and so everybody was really, I think, had their eye on him last year when he started to really tear it up in the second half of the season of 2023. So I think we're all hoping that he can still continue to uh, hit where he left off as far as the last couple months of the year. So there's a couple camp battles that we're looking at, which are Patrick Wisdom and Miles Mastrobuoni. So again, Wisdom has hit a couple home runs. He's hitting 375 in 16 at bats, a 1.188 OPS, and he has 6 RBIs. So not too bad for coming back from an injury. Miles Mastrobuoni, obviously, he's kind of like our super utility man, the Swiss Army knife, so to speak. He's hitting 313 in 16 at bats, 898 OPS, one home run and 2 RBIs. I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do this year. Obviously, he could slot right in at third base if Morel, for some reason, is just absolutely, you know, it's if his errors continue the way that they have been,
Mhm.
he's definitely an option. So, and then of course we have Garrett Cooper, Dominic Smith, Matt Mervis, and David Peralta all battling for DH at bats. Mervis didn't do too bad today. I believe I think he just had a walk.
Mhm.
And then, so yeah, Mervis is hitting 304, 23 at bats, one home run, 883 OPS. So not too bad for him. He's kind of boosting his trade value a little bit. I don't really see a spot for him, Matt Mervis, in the future as far as first base, and maybe not even DH. I mean, he's a possible trade candidate, so he's kind of one to watch in the minors.
Yeah, I uh,
Um,
I I like his approach though. I mean, he has cut down on strikeouts so far this spring, gotten his walks up a little bit.
yeah,
He's not tearing the cover off the ball, which I'd like to see that. But if you're battling for a spot, you want to see them. Mervis is one of those top three hitters, right? But not too shabby, 800 something OPS in spring so far. How about David Bote though? What do you talked
yeah,
about Matt Mervis as a trade candidate. I was just thinking today, I saw Bote's fifth home run, and ironically enough, I know I was updating the bullets as the best hitters, for it so far, and I saw that Bote was up, and I'm like, I was gonna walk away because I think it was the eighth or ninth inning, game's almost over. I was like, yeah, I guess I'll watch Bote. I kind of thought it'd be funny if he had another home run, and lo and behold, boom, another fifth home run. That's kind of insane that he is tied with O'Neal Cruz for the most home runs in spring, and he's even gotten that many at bats, and then he's just capitalizing. I mean, what do you do for the Cubs if you have David Bote? Do you hang on to him? Do you trade him? What's the route?
I think you have to trade him. I mean, he's shown this before in years past as far as really showing out in the spring, and then the regular season hits, and he just kind of gets the bet a little bit.
It's
And really tapers off. I mean, the competition obviously gets better. That's one thing, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm. He hits well in Iowa too. He hits well at AAA. And so it sucks because you see him and it's just like, Cubs, you got to trade him to someone who's going to play him. The Cubs played the A's today at the time of recording. And A's, do you guys want David Bote? I know you don't have any money. He makes a lot of money for you guys. He's not going to make 700K. What if we pay half his salary? You want to pay David Bote 2.8 million, for a whole year of him at third base, and he could be like also kind of like a super utility like Mastrobuoni, um, and get a lot of at bats and be like a veteran presence for the youngsters over there. Like, hey, someone's got to want to take him. He's not on the 40-man roster, so they don't have to roster him in that way right away. But he almost should be on a lot of teams. I mean, but you're like you said, the problem is he has this tendency to he's on the fringe of these rosters. He's not on the actual team. In a few years it seems like, but he does really well in spring. You get excited, and then he either gets injured or he ends up not really hitting during the season, and then it's really difficult to try and play him. So it's tough though, because you see a guy like that, you want him to get a spot on a team. If he was battling with Wisdom and Mastrobuoni for a bench role, I mean, it's like you would give it to him, if you hadn't had these past few years of lack of success, right, during the actual regular season. So, it's difficult because he's hitting better than Mastrobuoni, but it's like the Cubs got to find a way to get rid of some of these guys. No offense to them, they're hitting well, but you take advantage of their trade value, right?
yeah, I think you have to. I mean, David Bodie's one of them, obviously. I mean, Matt Mervis, you really don't want to trade people
Right.
like Mervis, especially with a nickname like Mash Mervis, right?
Yeah.
Um, it sucks. I mean, obviously our outfield depth is tremendous as well. So, you would think if we do need to make an emergency type trade, if there was one to be had in the middle of the season or in the beginning of the season, um, because maybe let's say our pitching depth is just not, maybe Assad isn't the same like he was last year, or whoever steps in for Taillon, Wesneski or whoever, maybe we need that extra help with pitching, and maybe we can make a trade as far as packaging some of those outfield prospects together, and maybe a Mervis or a Bote, and really getting an impact pitcher. So we'll
Yeah.
see. I mean, Bote is, I mean, it's good. Like you said, it's good to win these games in spring training, even though they don't really mean a whole lot. It's good to see some guys kind of show out a little bit and show what they can do. So
Oh yeah.
in in the same game, Zach, so the Cubs won 3-1 against the Athletics today. Obviously, it's the Oakland A's, but it's really encouraging to see Shota Imanaga with 9 Ks over 4 1/3 innings. What are your thoughts on our pitching that we have going on here, especially Imanaga?
Yeah. So what I liked about Imanaga is that he has slowly but surely, I shouldn't even say slowly, he's actually pretty quickly picked up from Tommy Hotovy and the pitching infrastructure team, on the Cubs about okay, I'm in the lab. Like, what do we got to do here, right? He's already a good pitcher, a low three, high two something ERA pitcher in Japan. So it's like, what is the adjustment he needs to make? It's the high fastball, the carry, and it's locating that so the hitters aren't gonna be able to get under it, right? And then it's that splitter, and it's establishing some breaking stuff in the zone. 9 Ks in just over 4 innings. I was
Yeah.
actually a little surprised he didn't go further, but it sounds like he's right on pace. So I did some mental math earlier. He'll probably have one more realistic start in Cactus League, right? Then it will wind down, and so they could potentially fit into spot starts for him, or maybe one more start and then one more like long bullpen. But his next start, I'm looking for him to go 80 plus pitches, and then the bullpen or simulated game, something maybe in the minor league backfield somewhere, get him up to over 80 pitches comfortably. That way, when he's facing the Rangers, he's not going up there against the Rangers and only being able to throw 75 pitches. I want to see him dial it up to 85 to 90 pitches, right? That's what I'm looking for him. But other than that, disgusting splitter, great. I know I don't think he throws a sweeper, but I know he has both a slider and a curveball and the carry on that fastball. And he's a really good pitcher. And this time he really got strikeouts and he obviously didn't have any walks, but he didn't have any hard contact. He had a lot of pop outs. So that's really good to see. Only 3 hits. I know the A's aren't a good offense, but you got to take them when you get them, you know. You have this
Yeah.
offense in front of you, see if you can attack them. Speaking of taking it where you can get it, so in terms of the pitching this spring, Jordan Wicks has looked really good. His last outing, he had 7 Ks. He basically finished the game for the Cubs. He had I think he had 4 innings and 7 strikeouts. So the Cubs are starting to put together these really high strikeout outings.
Yeah.
Steele, Wicks, and Imanaga, all the lefties are shining. Wicks, 12 and a third innings pitched, 1.46 ERA, 1.05 WHIP so far in camp, and 10 Ks. So his strikeout numbers actually looked really low last time. I know he bumped him back up. That's where we'd like to see him, right? 10 Ks per 12 innings pitched. That's about what we want from him, right? Especially facing major league hitters now, he's got to get his strikeout rate up a little bit. Another couple pitchers that have done very well in camp so far that I think have earned themselves a job. And this is where CJ Edwards might get crowded out a little bit. But I've got Jose Cuas, 6 innings, 1.5 ERA, 1.17 WHIP, and 8 Ks. Okay, so looking really good, limiting walks. Luke Little, 6 innings, no runs given up, 0.67 WHIP, and 6 Ks. So Luke Little shutting him down like always. I think he's earned the lefty spot in the pen. And I think Jose Cuas, if he does not make the team out of camp, I'd be a little surprised, but I know he's going to be called up very quickly if he doesn't. Another couple pitchers to watch in the battle for the bullpen, CJ Edwards. Again, he would need a 40-man roster spot, 4 innings pitched, a 0 ERA, 0.25 WHIP, 3 Ks. I actually think I need to double check this on roster resource. I forgot to check it before. He may be out of options, whereas Jose Cuasa, Daniel Palencia do have options. And then and of course, Daniel Palencia, 3 and 2/3 innings, high WHIP, 1.36 WHIP, high ERA, 7.36, a few Ks. So the thing about Palencia is he had a bad outing or two to start, but he's looked good recently. Fastball's been looking good, and he's been throwing like a splitter sinker mix called a splinker. So it's just a hard splitter. And that's a good look for Palencia, the slider, splitter, and fastball. So I'm excited about him if he doesn't make the team out of camp. He's definitely going to be called up pretty quickly. So we've got 3 pitchers battling for the 5th starter spot, Assad, Wesneski, and Smyly. Wesneski and Assad have option years, which helps them get moved up and down from Iowa back to the big league team. So Smyly will definitely have to make the team no matter what. It's possible the Cubs roll with Wicks in the 4, then Smyly in the 5. Well, I think what's locked in right now is Wicks in the 4th spot in the rotation. And I believe that, again, Assad, Wesneski, and Smyly are in that role. I'm not exactly sure where they'll go with it. Smyly would make the team either in the bullpen or a starter spot. But if Smyly makes if he gets into the bullpen gets extremely crowded, and that's where, one of Little, Cuas, or Palencia may not make the team, right? So that'd be a tough pill to swallow. Again, you use your options, bring guys down to Iowa temporarily, and then maybe I think one of Assad or Wesneski has to go. So I guess, John, from your opinion, as we're at the tail end of our pod here, who do you want in the 5th starter role among those 3? Do you have any preferences?
My gut instinct is that Smyly should stick to the bullpen.
Okay.
I think that just adds another lefty piece right alongside Little. Wisniewski, I think I'm still on the fence about him. I'd like to see more consistency with him.
Right.
Javier Assad, I think for me, has earned it as far as how he performed last year, really. But
Right.
I'll be the first one to say I was not on board with having him start games, in
Hmm.
July and August or whatever it was, September. I mean, But he filled in nicely, real nicely. So I really hope that despite Craig Counsell's affinity for Hayden Wesneski, I hope that Javier Assad, or as Cody Delmendo calls him, the ass man, I hope he gets chosen as kind of that fifth starter spot, or maybe a combination. Maybe, Wesneski and Assad can, what do you call it, like piggyback or whatever.
Yeah,
Wesneski could piggyback off Assad or whatever, or vice versa. But I think my gut instinct would be to have Javier Assad get that last.
he pitched a lot of innings last year, which is good, right? He pitched over 100 innings and had a low 3 ERA. So I agree. I do think he's earned it. Wesneski's looked better in camp, but Assad was really good last year, and Wesneski was just so-so last year. So it'll be interesting, but I think either way, um, whoever is in there is not going to be in that fifth starter spot for long before Taillon comes back. And last thought for you here, any players you're excited to see live at Globe Life Park in Arlington as we get ready for opening day?
Yeah, it's about 16 days away. Zach and I are going to be in Arlington Park on Saturday, March, was it 30th?
Yep.
So yeah, really excited. I'd say the players that I'm most excited to see would be Shota Imanaga, if we're lucky enough to see him pitch on that second day. I hope that they do make that decision, but we'll see. And then Cody Bellinger, obviously. I mean, I really want to see, his approach from two strikes and just kind of I want to see a belly ball, man. So what about you?
Yes. Um, I agree. Bellinger definitely. I want to see Morel. I want to see him look good at third.
Yeah.
And that bullpen is enticing too. I want to see like Alzolay close out a game, that fist pump. There's so many guys that I'm excited for. It's hard to just name one, but definitely Morel. I want to see him become a star there in the field.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for joining us here on the Brotherly Cubs podcast. If you have thoughts on today's podcast, comment them below. We always like responding to our viewers. If you have another interesting topic, let us know. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, or join the conversation with us on Twitter at Brotherly Cubs or Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I am John, and that's my brother Zach, and we will see you guys next week as opening day is right around the corner. Peace.
See ya.
Listen to this crowd.